The year 2017 was a transformative year for Sarawak. Dato' Patinggi Abang Johari Tun Openg, known locally as Abang Johari, has introduced a series of plans aimed to push Sarawak forward by embracing digital technology.
Saya jadi Ketua Menteri, saya madah, kalau nak ngembat Sarawak ke depan, setanding dengan orang lain, saya ada cara lain, melainkan gunakan digital ekonomi.
The decision to shift the paradigm in its development was inevitable, as Sarawak has been relying on non-renewable resources for its economic development. As the rest of the world is moving forward with emerging technologies such as cloud computing, blockchains, artificial intelligence, it is the obvious path for Sarawak to follow suit. It is the Chief Minister's vision for Sarawak to become a developed state by 2030 and to boost economic growth by 6%. This transition to digital will involve almost all sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, smart cities, digital health, e-commerce, digital governance, and social sectors.
Without electrification, we cannot realize modernization.
However, before we can actualize this vision, there are several issues that needs to be addressed.
Our problem is as big as a mountain, yet when we ask for a budgetary solution, you choose to give us only a cangkul.
Sabah dan Sarawak disisihkan oleh kerajaan.
Disparities in development are apparent between West Malaysia and Sarawak, especially that of rural areas. Basic infrastructure in rural areas such as healthcare, utilities, internet access are in critical condition. The fundamental approach to economic planning needs to be changed based on the existing resources.
Sabah dan Sarawak menyumbang lebih daripada 140 bilion melalui keuntungan hasil petroleum, peruntukan pembangunan untuk semua kaum. Di Sabah dan Sarawak, kedua-dua wilayah hanya 10 juta ringgit. Di manakah keadilannya ini?
When the Malaysian Agreement was signed in 1963, Sabah and Sarawak leaders expected their states to be more developed and progressive. Apart from large income inequalities and restricted employment prospect, Sabah and Sarawak's development is considered as unequal to that of the peninsula today. Although the previous government made a number of steps to ensure that the states of Borneo could hold their own against the peninsula, more must be done to ensure that no one is left behind when the next crisis arises. Many reasons contribute to the disparity in development between Sabah and Sarawak and the peninsula, besides distribution of income, but also population, settlement dispersion, skills, and a slew of others consideration must be made.
To further prove our point, we interviewed a few people from Semenanjung, Malaysia to see what's their perception towards Sarawak.
So for me, when the name Sarawak comes up, I think of a place that is rich in like beautiful types of rare animals, hornbills, and a place that is like filled with a lot of natural resources, dense jungles and all that, you know.
Hornbill and also ecotourism.
Nature. Okay, sebab Sarawak ni saya tengok dia ada banyak bukit, hutan, flora dan fauna.
Yeah, ecotourism, because I know that Sarawak has the best biodiversity among all the states in Malaysia.
Their river, which is the longest river in Malaysia, I guess. Sarawak also famous their plants, their trees and their culture.
Purana is the first thing that come in my mind when we talk about Sarawak.
When it comes to Sarawak, I just thought about Rumah Panjang and Cultural Village.
First thing that comes to mind is not very developed. So clearly I have a very single-minded perception of the state, and therefore I clearly have not much knowledge of the state itself. So my knowledge of Sarawak is very little.
Honestly, I don't know much about Sarawak since it's so far away, and also I've never been there before.
I'm not pretty sure about Sarawak because I actually have never been there before.
I don't know much about Sarawak because I never been there.
I know that it's a pretty big place and it's pretty far from Semenanjung, Malaysia.
And I know Sarawak is the biggest state in Malaysia.
negeri yang terbesar di Malaysia.
Their culture, because I know they have many types of cultures there, such as the Ibans, the Bidayos, the Bumi Putras, the Orang Hulus, and like many more.
Banyak etnik dan saya dan semua orang dekat Sarawak ni peramah. So saya ada seorang rakan daripada Sarawak dan dia sangat peramah dan saya suka berkawan dengan dia. So saya tak pernah pergi lagi Sarawak dan saya teruja sangat untuk pergi ke Sarawak.
From this interview, we can see that the West Malaysians' perception towards Sarawak is pretty much unanimous. That Sarawak is the largest by size in Malaysia, that we have loads of jungles and biodiversity, and also being underdeveloped. And now, we would like to dive deeper into the issue of digital inclusivity in Sarawak.
Digital inclusivity refers to the ability for all individuals to have access to ICT. Digital exclusion can be caused by a lack of connectivity as well as more complicated reasons such as affordability or attitudes. Governments have devised market design procedures that shift some of the consumer surplus from one group to another as an implicit subsidy. A technique called as Universal Service Provision (USP) or Universal Service Obligations (USO). While the Malaysian government appears to have extensive USP policies and initiatives, some regions have been left out of communications infrastructure, either partially or completely. The state government of Sarawak in East Malaysia on the island of Borneo is attempting to close these gaps through new initiatives. The economic and social development as well as cultural preservation are examples of how the availability and reliability of internet infrastructure would improve their lives. Providing distant villages with dependable, inexpensive, and publicly accessible internet infrastructure is the single most successful strategy for achieving digital inclusion in Sarawak.